Hello, BookTube, and here's another video, science fiction video for the books that I'd received, old friends united, I guess you would say, but also some that I've purchased since I've been in UK, a couple things to fill out, and I'm specifically focusing on a publisher this time. The publisher is Advent Publishers. It was started by Earl Kemp and several other uh, science fiction enthusiasts in Chicago in the mid 50s, 1955 ish, I think. Earl Kemp was an interesting character. He was a fan, and he sort of was instrumental in getting the publisher going. And it was a publisher for bibliography and criticism, science fiction criticism. They lasted for for quite a long time. I think that it was sold to another publisher at some time, but the imprint kept on going. Um, and there are, for some of the titles, there are print on demand reprints in paperback and possibly even hardcover, but I would steer away from them unless you want something that looks quite ugly. And the paperback will be much cheaper and actually more durable than the print on demand, the general print on demand hardcovers. But yeah, they published, as far as I know, about maybe 30-ish titles, uh, and including some short story collections. There's a few things I don't have, and I can't find a couple things at the moment that I bought while I was in the UK here, and I don't know where they are, and it's going to be a long time before I find them. So it's either put this video off indefinitely, or do a video with the titles that I have. And then there are several other ones that I bought here as well that are been reprinted by another publisher. They were advertised as Advent, but they're not. They're other publishers, which is fine. But I was a bit disappointed. So because of that, I got them like knocked down cheap. I got refund, large refunds on, because they described them. But anyway, let's start at the top here. I got them here, and then I'm going to put them on the floor, so I'm going to lean forward a bit. This might be a little difficult to see, but this is somewhat like the covers. Oh no, that's coming up okay. The glare is medium. This is SF in Dimension, a book of exploration, 20 essays by Alexei and Corey Panshin. This was published again by Advent in 1976. And it is a collection here. It says 20 essays lay the foundation for a new understanding of science fiction. Alexei Panshin is the author of the Nebula Award-winning novel Rite of Passage and of innovative critical study Heinlein and Dimension, which we'll see in a few moments. All of the writing is now done in collaboration with his wife, Corey. Since 1969, the Panshins' chief work has been re-examination of science fiction. They have spent the last 7 years dwelling on the meaning of SF, reading old science fiction stories, rethinking accepted premises, and taking advantage of every opportunity to write about science fiction. And SF in Dimension is a collection of their central essays documenting the evolution of the new and fruitful paradigm. SF in Dimension offers a challenge to all conventional opinion about SF. Now, these are really good essays. It's sort of the basis in some ways for their World Beyond the Hill, a massive tome on, well, not massive, but it's like 600 pages approximately on sort of the history of science fiction. And this is sort of some of the stuff where they started with. And so I've been really lucky to get a hold of this. I could see. No, I can. I think I might have paid $20 Canadian for it, I think. No, 12. Yeah, because the way it was written, I think it's been erased, but there's a ghost of it there. Some of them I still have prices in. Now this one, I want to get the other one here. Yeah, here we go. I'll work these two together. There is the issue at hand. See, this is typical of their covers. See, it's a bit dulled on the spine. I like them, the black and white jackets. And then there's more issues at hand. And it's by William Athling Jr. And it's edited with an introduction by James Blish. Now, who is William Athling Jr., you would ask? That's James Blish. He edited himself. It was sort of a no one's secret, I suppose, if it ever was a secret. Let's see which one is. This is the issue at hand. For several years, hiding under the cloak of anonymity, the most penetrating critic of the field of science fiction was known as William Athling Jr. For some time, the end game was to try to guess Athling's true identity, and that was a difficult cause because Athling's dissection did not even exempt his own ego, though the one better known as James Blish. Now, without his protective covering, James Blish has assembled the Athling papers, edited them into a present volume, making the issue at hand virtually the single most necessary text for would-be writers in or out of the science fiction field. The essays lead the aspiring authors and editors, tomorrow's Wolfes and Campbells, painstakingly by the hand through the dense force of said bookism. The more treacherous bores of repetitive phrasing and other forbidden territories, and even an old hand or three will find pause to wonder and reflect long enough to reevaluate his own professional standing. That's a tall order, what they're saying there. Whether or not it's... Yeah. They're good. They're good by no means, but they've been superseded, obviously, by a lot of stuff. But not. It's still his opinion, so it's still valid. So there's a list of some of the Advent publications. I don't know if you can really see that, but anyway, we'll go through a lot of these. Then you got more issues at hand. It's the same thing. The issues at hand was published in 1964, and more issues in 1970. Now it's showing here that it says $25 on this one. That would have been strange for me to pay that much, but then again, I may have. I don't remember. Now we got going back to Alexei Panshin. With an introduction by James Blish, is Heinlein in Dimension. I really do love these covers. That's why, I really like the publisher too, and in some ways, I'd love to have everything they publish. Well, I'll talk a little bit more about the items that I don't have. This is a bit of a controversial, or was at the time. Panshin came out in 1968. He was youngish, in his 20s, I believe, when he wrote this. And Heinlein went ballistic on this. Absolutely ballistic, knowing that he was writing this and criticizing his work. And he went to Earl Kemp, I think it was Earl Kemp, and tried to stop it. And he was longtime friends with Earl Kemp, apparently. So, and then that didn't happen, and he cut all ties with him. The book came out. It is quite scathing in many ways. Some people dismiss it, but it definitely has its place. And Alexei Panshin on his website I forget what his website is called. But he's got an essay of how, like, the controversy sort of behind this. I've actually yet to read it, so I do need to read it, but probably will be in conjunction with this. And then I think Earl Kemp or somebody else was writing from the other end of his sort of memories of this, and then Alexei Panshin, did a rebuttal to that as well. So it's something that sort of was long lasting, and it's an important book in science fiction scholarship. Okay, Robert Blotch, many will know. That is the Robert Blotch, sort of horror-ish writer. And this is The Eighth Stage of Fandom, Selections from 25 Years of Fan Writing, edited by Earl Kemp, with an introduction by Wilson Tucker. I think I could faintly see a $1 price on this one. So you pay high on something, you pay low on another. But this would have been 30 years ago or more. So this is 1962, and yeah, it's I think it's all Blotch's writings. Yeah, it's all his fan writings, and this is the one only issue I really have with Advent is their typeface at times. This isn't quite as bad, but there are some, and I might have the one here that it just looks like dot matrix. So that is a bit of an issue, but they're cloth bound. This has a few dings in it, but and again, it's the spine, because of the nature of it, the paper wasn't the best for the jackets. Hence they're in dust jacket protectors to save what's left of them. This I remember as being quite interesting. It's the science fiction novel. It's Imagination and Social Criticism. Introduction by Basil Davenport. It's just a card there, and let's see when it was published. 1969. See, that has a better typeface than the other one, so I'm not sure what was going on there with them. This is, does science fiction have any real effect as a force of social criticism? This question has been given much thought and discussion, but until the publication of this volume, there was no definitive inquiry available in book form. Here are four distinctly different analyses of the question: a positive yes, a positive no, a literate maybe, and perhaps most surprisingly, a revealing look at the inner workings of an author. Above all, the science fiction novel is entertaining as well as informative and useful. As Basil Davenport says in his illuminating introduction, this book has given me the pleasure, all too rare since my college days, of being a book that I could argue with. No one can agree with all these papers, since they do not agree with each other. But where you disagree, you will find yourself wanting to say exactly how far and why. That is my idea of a really stimulating and enjoyable book. The contributors are Basil Davenport, Robert Heinlein, C.M. Kornbluth, Alfred Bester, Robert Blotch. Yeah, I think that's it, yeah. And it says 1959. Oh, so this might be. Oh, this is the third edition, July 1969. So it was originally done in 1959. It's not a first. I didn't check that with the others, but that's fine. Let me check the Blotch one because of the curious with the printing. See, this is 1962, so it was a bit earlier. So. This one here is another, the Tale That Wags the God by James Blish, edited by Cy Chauvin, introduction by John Foister, and bibliography by Judith L. Blish. This is, when James Blish died in 1975, he was one of the top science fiction writers. In addition, he was perhaps the leading technical critic in the science fiction field. Advent had published 2 books of his criticism, and he was planning 2 more collections when he ultimately his untimely death intervened. After many years, Cy Chauvin has now assembled and edited a new collection of Blish essays, some critical and some autobiographical. So that's what this is. This is a 3rd volume of his essays. It was done in 1987, and I might have bought that new, because I've got a $35 and then marked down to $15, so I might have bought that new. Here's one I've already shown, but it is an Advent. This is a print on demand reprint. It's quite ugly. But the hardcover is white, but it just looks better than this. This is glossy. Yeah, it's was printed by Amazon, but I got it really cheap. Originally came out, well, it doesn't say, but I think it was in the 80s as well. I do want to get this in hardcover. It's Galaxy Magazine, The Dark and Light Years by David L. Roshheim. This is a 2021 reprint. Yeah, first paper. Well, it says first paperback edition. The hardcover is a bit pricey. I did order one from the U.S. some time ago. Many months ago through eBay, and it never showed up. I eventually got my money back, and literally about 3 weeks ago, I got an email from the person. This is like probably 4 or 5 months after the fact, or more. Yeah, it must have been. It must have been actually around Christmas or January. So we're talking more than that. He says he finally received it back. The label was ripped off. I don't know, but I don't have like the money to fork out for it again, but I do. And then this came up really cheap for less than £2. No, not £2. It was less than 4. I think it was £3 some. It's got a bit of ding in it and stuff, but that'll do. It's a sort of not an academic, but a more of a unofficial sort of history of Galaxy Magazine, which I really like. Now, here's something. This was the first book published by Advent Publishers. 1956. So they were definitely, so it was about 55 when they started. This is the 2nd edition, hardcover. 2nd edition revised and enlarged. 1967. And it's critical essays on science fiction. It has a lot of stuff, like it's got stuff about Asimov. Don't remember anything about Simak in here, but it's got some Asimov in here, and Campbell, and other ones, Kornbluth, James Blish, writing Ray Bradbury, writing Theodore Sturgeon, Heinlein, A. Van Vogt, Fletcher Pratt, Sam Moskowitz, and a bunch of others. And then this is, see, I've had this for a long time, but I bought this as, I'm sure it's a print on demand. Something on the front page edges. Yeah, it is a print on demand. This is the 3rd revised edition, I believe. I don't think there's a title page in here. Should look through to see if everything's in here. Yeah, there's no title page on this. I didn't notice it. I hope there's nothing missing, because I had that with another one. I haven't really looked at this, but I think it's the 3rd edition. So it does look like there's more in it. Yeah, so that was sort of nice. I don't have the first the first printing of it. Not that I really need to. You know, if I ever saw it cheap, I might. This is Reanimus. It was republished by Reanimus in the paperback. I'm not sure if the third ever came out in the hardcover, but anyway, that's that. Okay, and here we go. Of Worlds Beyond, edited by Lloyd Arthur Eschbach. We did see a book by him, I think, in the first pile that I showed. But again, I love these covers. I really do. It's just that's why I like. Well, it's like, if I got a choice to buy a copy of the book, I would prefer to buy it from that it was Advent. Rather than the other publishers that did it, but it depends on price, obviously. This is a short. Oh, okay. It's a bookmark that's in there. It's a symposium. Originally issued in a small limited edition by Fantasy Press, Of Worlds Beyond rapidly sold out and became a collector's item in a very short time. In response to many requests, the proprietors of Advent Publishers have arranged with the editor, Lloyd Eschbach, to return Of Worlds Beyond to the realm of present-day students of science fiction, as well as those who were unable to obtain the original copy. Got somebody's name in it with a date, 4th of December, I think it is, 1965. 1964, originally 1947 by Fantasy Press. It's a symposium. It's got Robert Heinlein, John Taine, Jack Williamson, A. Van Vogt, Eschbach de Camp, Edward E. Smith, E. Doc Smith, John W. Campbell Jr. And it's essays like On the Writing of Speculative Fiction by Heinlein, Writing a Science Novel, John Taine, The Logic of Fantasy, Jack Williamson, Complication in the Science Fiction Story, A. Van Vogt, Humor in Science Fiction, Eschbach de Camp, The Epic of Space, E. Doc Smith, The Science of Science Fiction Writing, John W. Campbell Jr. It's very short, but some good essays in there. This one's a little different for them. It's called Footprints on Sand. It's L. Sprague and Catherine Crook de Camp. They changed. This is almost like a parchment cover for this, and like a very colorful frontispiece of the authors. It's illustrated by C.H. Burnett. It's 1981, so it's one of their later ones. Footprints on Sand is a selection of short stories, verse, nonfiction, and excerpts drawn from almost every facet of the de Camp's diverse writings: fantasy, science fiction, children's stories, poems, fabulous. Yeah, okay. Romantic and pragmatic notes on prehistory, the evolution of weaponry and development of imaginative fiction, the origins of engineering, of Atlantis, Conan, and magic. Included in this book is a selection of tributes from such friends and admirers as Poul Anderson, Isaac Asimov, Lynn Carter, Robert Heinlein, Patricia Jackson, Andrew Offutt, and George Skithers. So, yeah, it's just a collection. I don't think I've done much with this or looking at it. I'm not that versed with the contents in here. Yeah, I see some poetry and so forth. So, yeah, we saw this one already, but it's A Requiem for Astounding. This is a very bleak cover. But it's sort of like the Galaxy one. It's the Galaxy one's like this. It's white on the front, and then shows, like this one shows astounding issues on the back, and the Galaxy one showed, I think, the first issue of Galaxy. Yeah, this has sort of the bad, not bad, but it's off-putting in some ways to read. But anyway, it's A Requiem for Astounding, with editorial comments by Harry Bates and F. Orland Tremaine and John W. Campbell. Harry Bates was an editor, obviously, and F. Orland Tremaine, editor, and he was instrumental in that We saw the one volume of it from Asimov, the writers of the 21st century, I think it is. Him and Greenberg. Uh, Forget the Greenberg's first name, but Greenberg edited the series, and I'll show those maybe separately. I still would like to get. I think there's 3 more that I'm aware of. Well, definitely I'd like to get the Ray Bradbury one and the Jack Vance one. The Philip K. Dick, yeah, if I found it cheap enough. But anyway, let's get back to this. This is for 30 years under several slightly different titles and from several publishers. Only one magazine was always the science fiction magazine. That was Astounding Science Fiction. Now metamorphosized in a slick, near-technical journal under the title Analog, the magazine Astounding is considered dead by most older devotees. Elva Rogers is just such a devoted fan, and he leads the reader now through his personal nostalgic recollections of Astounding. This is the definitive analysis of the magazine from the first issue to the last, and Mr. Rogers has effectively recreated an aura of excitement and immediacy, and an aura of excitement and immediacy which surrounded the heyday of adventure publishing, when the Pulitzer King of the newsstands and publishers fought to offer at least one title on every conceivable subject. So yeah, this is again, it's like the Galaxy one. It's not fully academic or anything like that, but it is a good one. But yeah, you can see the typeface isn't quite as nice. And he was a fan. Oh, I can't find it here, but I've got a foundation which is pretty good. It's got a teenage Arthur C. Clarke sitting sort of up over his shoulder. Is like 6 shelves of his astounding and amazing and science fiction stories, like huge runs of them. And Arthur C. Clarke did another one called, it's sort of a memoir, Astounding Days, and it's his sort of discovery of science fiction magazine, science fiction in general, but a lot to do with Astounding. So that's quite nice as a personal memoir as well. Not only about Clarke, but about somebody discovering science fiction. And this reference here to the that it's now metamorphized, oh jeez, I can't even speak now. Anyway, into a slick, near-technical journal under the title Analog. And this was published in 1964, and that was during the time where Analog changed its name, but it also went to large format. And it wasn't all slick. There were slick sections. I don't believe every page was slick thing, and Campbell didn't like it. And it ran for maybe 14 to 20 issues or something like that in the large format, and then it went back down to the digest size. But that's what it's referring to. Never stayed that. But yeah, when it did change, people didn't like it. This is the last one that I have here that I can put my hands on. It's All Our Yesteryears. I think we've seen this as well, yeah. Harry Warner Jr., introduction by Wilson Tucker. Again, I love the cover. But yeah, they are fragile because it's like, there's even some damp staining there, but there's a tear piece that's almost torn right out in here. So it would be gone if I didn't have it in the dust jacket protectors. It's 1969, and it's an informal history of science fiction fandom in the 40s. He wrote a sequel, sort of, to 1950s, but that was by a different publisher. It was sci-fi publisher or something like that. I showed it on another one, but it's just a brief bit from the flap. Science fiction, for more than any other specialized literary fields, has spawned a small but voice-first group of enthusiasts, known among themselves as science fiction fandom, or more simply, fandom. The formed discussion clubs issue reams of amateur publications, put on conventions, and engaged in voluminous correspondence. This social microcosm may have started as a defensive reaction in the bad old days when science fiction was considered sheer trash, and those who enjoyed it were regarded as slightly deranged. You read that Buck Rogers stuff? What kind of nut are you? It was only natural that the nuts should foregather with others of their kind, where they could find friendship instead of sneers. Through active fandom, though active fandom has rarely numbered more over 500, it has been a training ground for most of the science fiction magazine editors and many of the top writers. Ray Bradbury, Frederick Pohl, Damon Knight, Wilson Tucker, Robert Blotch, James Blish, Robert Silverberg, and many others served their literary apprenticeships in fandom before they became professional writers and editors. Harry Warner Jr. was an active fan for more than 30 years, has written his history of fandom of the 1940s with some excursions into earlier times to round out the picture. He plans another book to cover the 1950s, and he did. This is the 40s. There is a good history of the 1930s, I believe. I don't have it. It's Sam Moskowitz's first book, Immortal Storm, I think it was called, or something like that. I'll show you some Sam Moskowitz stuff, and because there's another writer I really like, so I'll separate him out. I've already showed some books, but I'll separate him out. But yeah, he wrote, it's been criticized because it doesn't talk about science fiction so much, it talks about the fandom. Well, that's what the book's supposed to be about, fandom. So, that's Advent Publishers. I've got, as I say, a couple things, and I got a paperback of Howard DeVore's history of the nebulas and the Hugo and Nebula Wars. Like, he goes into a lot more detail of everyone, like the researchers that were nominated and won, the artists, and he gives all the not honorable mentions, but the ones that were nominated for it, like a complete history. He spent a long time doing this, but I got a paperback of it, and the publisher did a number of other things. They've got about 3 or 4 collections of essays and reports on a number of early science fiction conventions, which I'd really love to get. Some of those are only in paperback. They are a bit scarce. There's a 3-volume history, a dictionary. A 3-volume encyclopedia of science fiction, which is a little different. It's something I'd like to get. It's not prohibitively priced, but someday I probably will get it just to have it and compare it to other encyclopedias, because it was foundational in sort of encyclopedias at the time by Tuck, Donald Tuck. I'm not sure. I'm thinking of Donald Duck, but Tuck was his surname. Actually, it might be on here. Let me see. No, I don't see it here. There's also, I have somewhere, it's right here, Universes of E.E. Smith, Doc Smith. It's a sort of somewhat biographical, but it's a bibliography as well of E.E. Doc Smith. Definitive Concordance says this is the definitive concordance, but scholarly and sprightly, to the epic Lensman and Skylark novels. I've got that somewhere, but I just can't put my fingers on it at the moment. And sorry, I just thought there might have been something else there. So that's Advent Publishers. Started in 1955-ish, and published a lot of great stuff. And I do love the jackets on them. And I do hope to be able to someday complete the collection of all of them, because everything is worth having for them. They put out a big portfolio. That's a bit rare. Portfolio of Kelly Freese's Kelly Freese's artwork. And that one is difficult to get. And they publish, as I say, paperback and hardcover. So anyway, take care. There'll be more to come. There's a lot more books to go through. And if I can find everything, even ones that I've got here. But eventually they'll hopefully will be up on shelves here end of the year or so, and I can do a better sort of showing of them. But anyway, take care, BookTube. We'll see you next time.